We have not one, not two, but three pieces of news for today. On this weekend, on this Saturday, we have had some announcements from Blizzard on three different fronts. Front number one is the front of the raid. The front of the raid tells us that Blizzard has decided to further nerf Tindral. Tindral has gotten its HP reduced by 10% and its fiery vines, the health of the vines, reduced by 10% in Mythic difficulty. Now, this is of course related to the, I guess, problems of progression on this boss. If we go over to the progression right now, the number of kills of bosses, you can see the gap. You know, you can see the amount of guilds currently stuck on Tindral. You see there are roughly 1,000, right? There are 1,900 guilds already killing Smolderon, but only 900 guilds killing Tindral, which means there is currently 1,000 guilds trying to kill Tindral. Meanwhile, there are only 500 guilds trying to kill Farak. So there are basically twice as many guilds stuck on Tindral than there are stuck on Farak at the moment. So Blizzard has identified Tindral as the more complicated of the two, I guess, between Farak and Tindral. It is still a pretty necessary nerf if we consider the amount of progression required for these bosses. You know, this tier started quite okay. If you look at the pull count needed in Mythic to kill these bosses, you see that Nalroot was on the, average of 7 pulls, and then you had Igira, which was 15 pulls on average. Then you had Volcaros, even easier, 8 pulls, up to Council. Decent boss, 25 or so pulls to kill. Larodar, 40 or so, 30 to 40. Nimue, again, about 40. Smolderon, then we get the first block of the raid, about 100 to 150 pulls on average. And then things get steeper with Tindral, where the number of wipes average is 400, with Farak averaging roughly 300. You also see on Tindral the progression and the amount of nerfs happening on Tindral. You see that the kill rate is basically non-existent, then there is one set of nerfs, two set of nerfs, and it starts becoming higher, and then third set of nerfs, and this kill rate starts spiking up. This is very reminiscent of the good old days of Sepulcher. The dotted lines are the amount of nerfs necessary on the boss to make him more killable. This is the Jailer. As you can see, the more the nerfs, the more the boss becomes manageable, even though the average pull was like 250. You had multiple nerfs for Rygalon as well, which was a 150 wipe boss. You had even more on Anduin, which was, again, 200 plus wipes boss, and why not the lovely Alondrus, which was basically unkillable until they started mega nerfing it. So that's kind of necessary for Blizzard to give some nerfs to Tindral, as also Blizzard wants to generally aim, at the very least, at around 1,000 kills of the last boss by the end of the tier, minimum. So if we go back to, for example, even Shadowlands with Castonatria, the kills here were 2,000. In Sanctum, the kills here were 1,800. In Sepulcher, much harder, but still 1,200. They managed, after 50 sets of nerfs, to bring the kills of the Jailer to 1,200. Vault of the Incarnates, it was 1,700. And then you had Aberus, it was 1,700. And now we are on Amir Drasil, and it's still at 460. And the next tier, season 4 with the Fated Season, should come out around, mid-April to late April, maybe early May, so around a couple of months. So that's the timeline Blizzard wants to aim at, to be able to get this number of kills higher up, past the 1,000 mark. And this will be helped by nerfing Tindral and allowing more and more guilds to actually get to Farak in the first place. Now, the second bit of news, it's still raid related, but this is at a much wider angle, because the nerf to Tindral is just for Mythic, and not just for Mythic, but for the very last couple of bosses of Mythic, whereas this one is the change of the drop rate, or rather the acquisition rate of Firalath, the legendary, the two-handed axe legendary. If we want to go to the TLDR, well, this is the TLDR. A TLDR is not just knowing the new acquisition rate of the legendary, but also comparing this to the old acquisition rate of the legendary. The TLDR is that now with the new version, if you have killed already Farak 15 times in heroic by your next kill, basically if you haven't killed this reset, or if you already have and you have to wait next reset, the next time you kill, you will get guaranteed your legendary. For Mythic, it's basically half, it's 7. So if you have already killed Farak 7 times in Mythic, which is going to be very few people at this point, you will also get your legendary guaranteed next kill. These are the two massive jumps in chance compared to LFR and normal. LFR and normal's chance does not increase that much. You will go from a maximum of 10% chance to get it in the LFR version to a 15% chance to get it with 40 embers of Feralath from LFR. If you have gone through normal, you are going from a 20 to a 30% chance with 40 embers of Feralath. Meanwhile, as mentioned, we are going from 16 to 100% chance in heroic after 14 kills, and then 100% chance in Mythic after 6 kills on your 7th in Mythic. Now, this doesn't just show the massive jump in the loot chance of the legendary, but also how drastically low this was in the first place, right? Like, knowing that even if you spent 1 month, for example, or 2 straight months of defeating Farak in heroic, and you still only had a 4.2% chance of getting this legendary. You were basically on a roulette, on a lottery. If you weren't even doing heroic in LFR and normal, the chances were basically at 1%. Even 3 months in, 3 months of LFR Farak, you still only had a 1% chance of getting the legendary. But even the Mythic version was drastically low. Imagine being a Mythic Raider. Imagine having killed the boss for example, 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 month in a row of killing Mythic Farak, which would have put you at this point of having killed Farak at least 1 month ago. So if you go at the kills of Farak, instead of looking at the 20th of February, if you start going backwards all the way back to a month ago, like here, you would have been around world 160. If you were in the top 200 in the Hall of Fame, killing Farak for your 4th time, your chance was just 7%, 7.6% of getting this legendary. So still a very low chance. And to be honest, even the new one, even the buffed one, is still drastically too low in terms of chances. Obviously, now it's not nearly as bad because now you have the guaranteed jump on your 7th kill. But this, of course, raises the question, who is this legendary for? Why have we basically made this legendary almost unobtainable for so many people for so many months at this point, because the tier now has been out for over 3 months. So you have made this very hard to obtain for so long, and then all of a sudden you decide, well, you can get it for free now. You have waited long enough, we're going to give it to you for free now. It's a bit of a weird decision, especially when it comes to the acquisition of a very special item like a legendary. It should feel, and it would be better for the player base to give you deterministic rewards when it comes to a legendary. For example, after you get 6 tokens, you are guaranteed to get this legendary. You know that you will get the legendary in a month. You know that you will get the legendary in 40 days, in 5 resets. Not something like this, where it's basically just RNG roulette on whether or not you can get this legendary. It's good, finally, that we get players their legendary. I still think it's a bit too late though. 3+ months into the tier to get this legendary is a bit too late. We can still hope, of course, that this legendary might be, upgradable in some way for the next season, so that the poor guys who finally get to use this legendary like 4 months into this season, 1 month before the next season begins, might still have a way to continue using this legendary. The next point, the last of the news, is about another expansion, is about the War Within. The Blizzard announcement is that thank you to everyone who provided feedback on the Oracle Hero Talent 3. Oracle, by the way, is the priest one that we looked over when it was released, and it was about Power Infusion. It was about upgrading Power Infusion into something even more powerful and even more technical to be able to use and micromanage around. Their comment is, one of our goals is sharing these hero talents trees so early in the process. After all, the alpha isn't even out for the next expansion. It should be out soon, actually. Our goal was to give us adequate time to evaluate and change things as necessary. After reading your feedback, discussing the talent tree, and playtesting the concept, we have decided to revisit the Oracle tree, especially regarding its focus on replacing Power Infusion. We have talked about this system when it came out, and we were quite skeptical of the further powers put into Power Infusion. The fact that now this Power Infusion went down to a 1-minute cooldown, the fact that now you could also have extra power increases, not just haste, 12% haste, but also 10% more damage. The fact that, more importantly and more problematically, you had clairvoyance, giving you a chance to gain all of the powers you could choose from, initially only one of them, all 5 of them at once, and not just to one target, but to 2 extra targets. Plus your own priest talent that gave Power Infusion to yourself with Twins of the Sun Priestess talent. It turned it into 4 targets. So you choose one player, Clairvoyance procs, it gives you to 2 more, and then you have Twins of the Sun Priestess, so Power Infusion also goes to yourself. You had this RNG element where you could have chosen, let's say, 10% magical damage, and instead Clairvoyance procs. So now you are giving a player 10% magical damage, 10% physical damage, 25% more healing received, 5% of their maximum mana back, and 12% more haste. Not to one player, but to 2 and 3, plus yourself. So it was a massive amount of variance on this talent tree, and also made it even more dependent on the power of this buff to give to other players as a priest, which you kind of wanted to just have more things to power your own toolkit, your own abilities, rather than, again, being a buff bot for the rest of the group. So it's good that we get to see the effects, the power of feedback coming into play before we even get into the alpha of the game, before we even get to actually see, first of all of the hero talent trees, because right now we've only seen like a fourth of all of the available talent trees in the game, but also before we even get into the game, into being able to actually test the results of all these trees. Blizzard is already on track for listening to the feedback and changing the planned additions to the game based on the community response, which is a nice thing to see right now. Of course, some other people will go, okay, fine, you listen to the priest complaining about this, what about the paladins complaining about the lights armament talent tree, which is very similar to this one, in the sense that it turns us into some kind of buff bots for the rest of the group. Well, for now, Blizzard is only changing the priest one. We will see if they will go on and further modify any more. But it's a good start. The priest one was definitely the more intrusive one and oppressive of the two when it came to powerful buffs. So it's nice to know that it is getting reworked. For today, on this Saturday, these are the 3 different news we are reporting. Number 1, the nerfs to Tindral to smooth out progression of the last couple of bosses. Number 2, the legendary now being made essentially available for free to most players who have kept killing the last boss for a while now, especially the heroic version, which is much more likely. If you have kept re-clearing the last boss every week, by now you will get the legendary for free. And then lastly, the listening to the feedback on the Oracle 3 for Priest previewed a few weeks ago when it comes to the next expansion. So with these 3 bits of news, we are now leaving each other on this Saturday. We are starting the goodbyes as usual by thanking all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel, which can, as usual, also be given for free. You can help with the heinous YouTube algorithm by liking and commenting down below on this very video, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, honestly, I didn't even expect it. I didn't even expect the Power Infusion meta of the next expansion to be changed so early. So, that's pretty cool.